Last time we were talking about what are the causes of inflation, like demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, monetary expansion, or there is going to be imported inflation. Today we are going to see whatever the time is there, what are the consequences which the whole economy will face. Like people of the country will face different consequences. Producers will also face, government will also have positive or negative consequences, and at the same time the international trade will also be affected due to inflation. Now the consequences of inflation, they will depend upon the type of inflation, the degree of inflation in other words. Like if it is stable inflation, it is not having too much harmful effects. Whereas hyperinflation, like when prices are growing by more than 50%, so in that case the consequences will be the severe one. And another thing by which the consequences will be affected, they are whether inflation is anticipated. Anticipated means what? It is expected to have inflation in the near future, or it is unanticipated, it is unexpected. And another factor which will having a consequence of inflation, that is in international market, like if our inflation rate is compared with other countries' inflation rate, okay, then our international trade will also be affected. Therefore, consequences will depend upon degree of inflation. We studied the degree of inflation, like it is stable or unstable. Second factor is whether it is anticipated or unanticipated inflation. Unanticipated inflation. And third one is compared to other countries. Compared to other countries. What do you mean by this thing? Like we are talking about our inflation rate is higher, or other countries are also suffering from the inflation rate, then their bilateral trade will also be affected. Now the first consequence, we will start from here, the households. How the households will be affected due to inflation. Household is a broad category in which we include the economic behavior of consumer, saver, borrower and lender, and worker. Labor is also the part of household, because the consumers, first of all, they go to earn money, and then whatever they earn, either they consume or save. And some people, those who are unable to fulfill their expenditures within their income, they need to borrow, and others will be the lenders. So household includes consumers, borrowers, lenders, and workers. Clear? How inflation will affect all of them? Now the first thing, how the consumers are affected. How consumers are affected. Consumers' real income will fall. What happened? Real income falls for the consumer when there is inflation. It causes the purchasing power of income to decrease. Income falls. The fixed earners. Who are the fixed earners? Salaried people, pensioners. They are earning in fixed amount, so their real income will decrease. The purchasing power of their income will fall due to inflation. In other words, they have to pay more prices for the same basket of goods. In other, you can say their expenditures will increase. What happens? Their expenditures will increase. So what happens to their savings? Saving will fall. Previously, if they were able to save something, now because of high rate of inflation, inflation, they are unable to save, rather they need to sometimes they need to borrow as well. So do you think borrower is benefited due to inflation? Do you have any idea about borrower? Okay, borrower, I say borrower or debtor. Debtor is benefited due to inflation. How he is benefited? Due to inflation. For example, a borrower borrowed money 2 years back. So in 2021, the prices were lower than today's prices. So he was able to buy more goods and services in 2001. So he is benefited in terms of the purchasing power of money he has enjoyed in the past. Whereas at present, he is returning the borrowed money. In real terms, he is paying less than he has borrowed. But this is one aspect. The borrower is having the different purchasing power in both the time periods. Another thing which I wanted to say that is, what is meant by real interest rate? What is meant by real interest rate? How to find real interest rate? This is nominal interest. Nominal means what? At current year prices minus inflation. What it is? Nominal interest minus inflation rate. For example, if borrower has borrowed money when interest rate was decided at 10%, interest rate is 10%, but inflation rate is now 15%. So what is the real rate of interest? That is minus 5. So in real terms, he is paying back 5% lower than he has to pay because of increase in inflation. Inflation rate is higher than the nominal interest rate. Clear? So borrower or debtor is benefited due to inflation. Now it is going to benefit the borrower. Another person which is also part of the household function, that is the lender or creditor. Lender or creditor will be the loser. Will be the loser. How he is loser? Because of this factor A. He lent money at 10% rate of interest, but when he is receiving back the same amount of money, its purchasing power is 5% below that. But even he is earning interest. But interest earning is lower than the rate of inflation, so he is losing in real terms. Clear? Now how will inflation affect the workers, or I say employment? Do you think inflation will create employment opportunities for the people? Do you think this thing? When inflation is caused due to increase in demand in the country, it is demand pull inflation. The labor is also demanded by more, it is also more demanded by the producers. So ultimately workers are benefited because they are provided more employment opportunities when inflation is growing by a stable rate, and it is demand side inflation, it is demand pull inflation. Clear? So unemployment will fall when inflation is growing by a stable rate and it is demand side inflation. Whereas if inflation is increasing like hyperinflation by more rate, and it may be due to the cost factors, then unemployment will not decrease, rather it will increase, because real profit of producers will decrease, so they will lay off the workers and they will decrease their investment in future. So when the rate of inflation is hyper and it is caused by increasing cost of production or cost push inflation, so the producers' real profit will decrease and they will decrease investment in future time, and they have to lay off the workers and unemployment will increase due to this factor. So it depends whether workers will be benefited due to inflation or not. It depends upon the stable rate of inflation and demand side inflation. Follow this thing. Now come toward the second thing which will be affected due to inflation, that is the investment. Do you think investment will increase or decrease? It will again depend upon the degree of inflation. If inflation is growing by a stable rate, so investment will be increased. And it is anticipated that prices will grow in future by 2%, 3%. So investors are encouraged to increase their investment when inflation is increasing by stable rate. And on contrary, you can say when inflation is growing by faster rate, like hyperinflation will discourage investment. Follow my point? Isaac? So investment, inflation is having dual effect on investment. Investment will be attracted when there is growth rate in general price level, but it must be a stable rate of inflation, not hyper, and it must not be unanticipated. Unanticipated means unexpectedly prices are growing in future, so investors are reluctant to increase their investment. Now the third factor who will be having effect of inflation, that is the government. Do you think government will be benefited due to inflation? Government tax revenue will increase due to inflation. For example, prices of the products are increasing, so government is able to collect more indirect tax revenue. Clear? So when indirect tax revenues are increasing, the government is benefited due to inflation. This is one way that indirect tax revenue. I said tax revenue of the government will increase. Now what about the direct taxes? Do you think they will also increase? They will also increase. How? Like my nominal income is going to increase. If a worker is working and he is drawing 100,000 rupees per month. So what will be the annual income of that worker? 1.2 million. So he was paying tax of 2 or 3% at that income bracket. So when he gets an increment of his income, annual increment, his income goes to more than 100,000 rupees, maybe 100,000 and 110,000 rupees per month. So his annual income will increase by 120,000. Now his income bracket to pay taxes will also increase. His income has increased by 10% annually. So by increasing income by 10%, his income bracket, you know the progressive tax will be studied. So in the higher income bracket, he has to pay more taxes. It is called fiscal drag. What does it call? Fiscal drag means his tax bracket is changed. Government is benefited because now the direct taxpayer is liable to pay more taxes. Government revenue is increasing, but the taxpayer himself is facing to have more progressive taxation because his income bracket has changed. On one way his tax rate has increased, on the other way inflation is also increasing, so his real disposable income has decreased. What happened? For example, his income has increased by 10%. Now nominal income has increased. Tax rate is also now 5% of the income, annual income, but the prices have increased more than 10%. But do you think he is benefited due to increase in his income? No, because his real disposable income has gone down, and this is called fiscal drag. This is the government fault that they haven't kept the tax brackets according to the real changes in the income of people. They are collecting taxes on the nominal basis. Followed my point or not? Now I am going to write something over here. What happens to the international trade? What happens to international trade? Can we say exports of the country will increase or decrease due to inflation? What do you think? It depends whether our inflation rate is higher than the other country or not. When our inflation rate is higher than our trading partner, then our exports will fall. Because our goods are having higher prices than other countries. Our trading partner will switch to other countries' products rather than they had to buy from us. So if our inflation rate is higher than our trading partner country to whom we are selling the goods, our exports will decrease. And our imports will increase because our domestic goods prices are higher than the other countries' price level. So imports will increase when our prices are growing faster than our trading partners. On the other side, look over here. So you can say if this is the case, imports are increasing and exports are decreasing. So the balance of trade of the country is worsening due to inflation. But although our price level is increasing, our exports are becoming expensive, but still our prices are lower than our trading partner country. For example, we are selling our goods to USA. Their prices are still higher than us, although our price level is also growing, but still our prices are lower than US market prices. So it will not have too much effect on the exports. Profit of the exporters can decrease if their cost of production is also increasing, and if our prices are increasing, but imported prices are still higher than our goods prices, then it will not have effect on the improvement in our imports. So it totally depends by which rate our prices are growing and our trading partner prices are growing. Clear? Now what happens to the exchange rate due to inflation? What do you think? Do you think exchange rate will depreciate? Yes, it will depreciate. Why it is depreciate? Because when people are buying more of imported goods, our supply of currency will be going outward. So when we are buying more goods from other countries, our exchange rate will depreciate as there is less buying of our exports from the other countries. So exchange rate will depreciate due to inflation. Now come to the other things like what happens to the menu cost. Do you know the menu cost? Like the departmental stores, they have put in the price tags on each commodity. Right nowadays, we see the barcodes are stored in the computer system of that departmental store. So when prices are fluctuating in a very short period of time, so these departmental stores have to hire more IT experts to change those barcodes. So this is called menu cost. These stores' employment cost will increase to hire more expert people in order to change the barcodes again and again. So their menu cost will increase due to inflation. Another cost which is present, it is called shoe leather cost. Shoe leather cost. What do you mean by shoe leather cost? Like if one person is going to borrow loans And there are so many lenders of loans, many banks, many individuals, they are lending money. So he will be or she will be in search of those loans where real rate of interest is the lowest. But this searching cost is actually called what? Shoe leather cost. Or if someone is going to deposit his money with the bank, so he will search out where the highest real rate of interest is earned. So these searching costs are called shoe leather cost. Another cost is called inflationary noise. Do you think what is meant by inflationary noise? Misinterpretation. Producers are thinking that their product demand is also increasing, they are also increasing the prices of their products. So inflation causes inflation in the economy. Clear? When there is inflationary pressure growing up, so many of the producers to whom the demand of their product hasn't changed, but they have also increased the prices. Or domestically produced goods, they are also increasing the prices because imported good prices have increased. Okay? So this is what inflation causes inflation. Now my question is that, discuss whether inflation is always harmful. It depends upon the factors. The rate of inflation and whether it is, and one question was there, discuss whether the inflation is having more harmful effects for international trade than the domestic market. So it again depends upon the rate, the relative rates of inflation in the two countries. Clear? So these types of questions are coming on the basis of consequences of inflation. So I tried my level best to cover all the topics which are related to the consequences of inflation, and tomorrow we will conclude this chapter by studying deflation and their consequences.